So the Senate yesterday, they decided not to have a vote on the Obamacare repeal bill. Why? Because they don't have the votes for it. Senate Republicans yesterday delayed plans to vote on repealing Obamacare this week amid strong resistance from both moderate and conservative Republicans to even start debate on the bill. Republicans plan to rewrite the health bill over the 4th of July recess to get a new analysis from the CBO before bringing legislation to the floor. According to senators and aides, GOP senators said their goal is to have an agreement by Friday and vote as soon as they come back from the break. Yeah, I'm not going to put money on that happening. Quote, legislation of this complexity almost always takes longer than anyone would hope, said Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. But we're pressing on. You've had 159 days. Actually, you've had longer than that. But since Trump was sworn into office, you've had 100, as of today, 159 days. Many of the Republicans in the Senate campaigned on this for 7 years. Don't tell me it takes a long time. These people had no plan whatsoever of repealing Obamacare. They had no plan at all of repealing Obamacare. They had no idea that Trump was going to win. They didn't plan on Trump winning. And then Trump wins, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we've got to start brand new. Even though Republicans have been talking about this for 7 years. At least have a foundation, a blueprint. Oh, well, I guess we did, but we trashed them all. Because you had, and this is where I'll give Ted Cruz a little bit of credit here, okay? Ted Cruz, and he is shocking a lot of people. There are numerous articles where he is shocking a lot of people because Ted Cruz was very anti-Obamacare, obviously, and he ran against Obamacare. But he has been out in front and saying, we've got to do something. Now, all of a sudden, you have moderates who are coming out going, well, yes, we've been talking about repealing Obamacare, but we can't do it. We just can't do it. We don't want to repeal it. We don't want to repeal everything that even looked like Obamacare. We want to leave some of that in place. It is pathetic. And this is why I keep saying they've got to do something. They have to pass a piece of legislation. If they don't, Republican voters will absolutely punish the Republican Party. I've got an article today from Politico where you have, I guess, some Senate Republicans who are upset with Trump. You know why they're upset with Trump? Because Trump's not giving them any cover. So that way they can win a larger majority in the midterm elections. Well, what the hell are you going to do with it? You have a majority now and you're not acting like it. You have a majority in the House, you have a majority in the Senate, you have the White House, and you still act like the Democrats are in charge. In fact, I would say the Democrats are still running the show for a large part. You know, they're refusing to work with Republicans. They're refusing to do anything Trump wants. The Democrats are still spreading this message that Trump colluded with the Russians in order to win the White House. You've got the media playing right into that and continuing this conversation that Trump and the Russians colluded to steal the White House away from America. The Democrats are still in charge. It's getting to the point where there needs to be a complete flip in Republican leadership because obviously the current leadership, it hasn't been working and it's totally dead right now. There is no Republican leadership. You've had 159 days since Donald Trump was sworn into office. You had time before then, by the way, when Congress was sworn in. But I'll give you the 159 days. You had 159 days to get your crap together to pass a piece of legislation that you've been campaigning on for 7 years. And you can't get it done. It is an embarrassment to the word leadership. One of the text messages that I received, we're stuck with Obamacare. I'm getting to that point where I I've been iffy that Republicans are actually going to do something. I've been very pessimistic, and I've gotten emails and texts about that. Chad, why are you being so pessimistic? These are some of the same fools. I'm sorry. Some of the same leaders who have been there for a while now, and they can't get anything done. Give us the House. We can stop Obamacare. Give us the Senate. We can stop Obamacare. Well, we need the White House. You got it. What are you going to do? And I will say there are some Republican lawmakers who get it. There are some who absolutely understand. I think John Cornyn does get it. When he's come on this show and said, we've talked about this for 7 years. Yesterday, he was interviewed by CNN in the hallway, and they said, would you support delaying the vote? He's like, no, that would be a mistake. We've talked about this for 7 years. We need to pass something. We need to get something done. So I think there are some Republicans who get it, and I'm not saying that this is the perfect bill. All yesterday would have done is move towards a debate. They still could have changed up the bill, but we can't even do that. And it's not just Mike Lee. It's not Rand Paul. It's not just Ted Cruz. There are 9 U.S. senators on the Republican side who refuse to move forward. And that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not going to repeal Obamacare. You can't rein in 9 senators. You can't get 9 senators. And I know some will say, well, they're standing for principle. One of the main principles was repealing Obamacare. That's been a pretty big principle. Now, Rand Paul, he has come out and said, listen, if it doesn't repeal, if it doesn't even look like a repeal bill, that's what I promised people was a repeal bill. You're not going to get a repeal bill. If you wanted a repeal of Obamacare, you should have voted for someone other than Donald Trump for president in the Republican primary. I know that's going to hurt some feelings. But if you wanted a full repeal of Obamacare, you should have voted for someone else other than Donald Trump in the GOP primary. Because Donald Trump never talked about wanting a repeal bill. He talked about repeal and replace. We have to have a heart. We have to have compassionate legislation. We want to take care of everybody. That's government involvement, folks. When you hear about taking care of everybody and the government taking care of everybody, guess what? That's government. That's big, in a way, that's big government talk. That we're going to take care of everybody. We don't want people laying in the streets, dying in the streets. We can't have that. So this thing, it's not anywhere close. They're talking about having a deal in place by Friday. If I were in Vegas and able to put money on it, I wouldn't. No, thank you. Now, it's possible. It's possible that they have a deal in place that, over the long week, over the recess, CBO comes out and scores it. But I can promise you this. Unless they come out with the single payer, which is what Elizabeth Warren is already talking about, by the way. She's already out saying this is where we need to naturally go. This is the next step. Unless you talk about expanding Obamacare, the CBO report will come out and say more people will have. If you go with a conservative plan, if you go with even a Republican plan for health care, there will be more people uninsured in 2026 than there are now. Because you will not have an individual mandate. And that is the CBO score is what freaks out a lot of Republican lawmakers. They're afraid that people are going to lose insurance. They're afraid of the commercials. They're afraid of the politics of it, that people won't have insurance anymore, and that they're going to be laying dead in the street outside of a hospital because the hospital won't take them. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of the CBO score, which the CBO has been wrong. CBO was wrong about Obamacare. But all of a sudden, we are being held hostage by the Congressional Budget Office. I think I'm supposed to say the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. Yeah. As a broadcaster, you have to say nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. But that's what's going on right now. It is legislation's being held hostage by the CBO. Because of this number that they just made up, that 22 million people by 2026 will have no insurance. They will be uninsured. You know what? To me, and again, this goes back to me wanting government completely out of health insurance. It's not the government's job to make sure everyone has health insurance. If you want health insurance, it's your job to go and get health insurance. It's not the government's job to make sure you're covered and you have a good deductible. Now, of course, that's the old way of thinking. Now it is completely up to the government. And the government has to solve all the problems. And granted, the government screwed it up with Obamacare. So, yeah, the government's got to go in and try and attempt to fix this. But I don't know how you do it when you're going to keep pre-existing conditions and you're going to keep funding pre-existing conditions. You're going to keep most of Obamacare regulations intact. I don't know how you lower these premiums. I guess that's part of the other buckets that eventually will get there. But the Republicans have got to do something. They've got to come up with a better piece of legislation that is than what's on the books now, and they've got to get rid of this individual mandate. 770-5790, toll-free, 1-800-687-0790. When we come back, we'll take your phone calls. Continue the discussion on health care legislation. Do you actually think Republicans will pass anything by the end of July? Cornyn said on this show, by the end of July, Senate will pass legislation on health care. Do you think that's actually going to happen? We'll be right back. All right, Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. Let's head to the phones, and first up is Bill. Bill, you're on KFYO. Hello, Bill.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you.
No problem.
You know, what you were just talking about a few minutes ago, the Republican plan, and what nobody is discussing is a market plan. Now, I remember well in the beginning of 2009 when the O was just coming in, me and my wife had a health care policy or insurance policy. We paid $179 a month for it. But it was, you know, I've always kept good savings, so we had a $3,000 deductible, or maybe a little more, and I paid for my own office visits. Well, you know, I don't much trust allopathic doctors anyway, so we're very healthy, and that works for me. I'm 62 now. I still don't go to doctors. I'm still very healthy, and I would buy that same policy again today. But so you said you guaranteed people would be less people would be insured if they pass it, and I really disagree. If the market was opened up and catastrophic only policies with health savings accounts were opened up, I'm telling you, I would flock to it. I would buy it. But I made a determination.
But you have to have that. You have to have that cheap policy in place. You have to have that same policy in place. And right now, you can't get that.
You can't get that by law. But and I made a determination a while back that I will go to jail before I pay a penalty for not buying something.
Yeah.
And I mean that very seriously. I'm not going to be forced to buy something I don't want or need. And I think if you open it up and really let the market determine, it'd take a year for these insurance companies to get back in gear. But I just don't believe that there would be that many uninsured if true market forces combined with health savings accounts were allowed to work.
Yeah, I could see that, but I could also see, somebody, and I know people still today who they're kind of like you. They're not buying anything, but they prefer just to pay cash, and they don't even have catastrophic plans. It's cash only, and that's what they would prefer. And I think that there would be some people who would do that. Now, if you had a catastrophic plan that cost you, a little over $100 a month, $3,000 deductible. Hey, I think there would be a lot of people who would do that.
Absolutely. And Sean keeps talking to this doctor that runs this boutique practice.
Yep.
That is enormously successful. And if the government would get out of the way, I think those things would proliferate all over the country, and doctors would be happier, patients, everybody would be happier and better served.
Well, and that's something that Mike Lee has brought up, and he has said, let states opt out. Let states opt out and allow people and allow states and allow people to do what they want when it comes to insurance. And I think you would see a lot more of those, type of meta share. In the things pop up. I think you would see a lot of those because they're very popular right now. Bill, thank you very much.
You betcha. Thank you, Chad.